Right, hello. Welcome to the penultimate interview with Cillian Clark. Obviously our president, Hilsa. I believe that's how you say it. This is the second time we'll be interviewing him. As you may remember, we interviewed him at the start of the term, and the final one will be at the end of his term. I'm joined by Neve Clark here. So, if you want to introduce yourself.
Uh, Digich. I am NiamhMcNamara is Anam Dom, former Taoiseach na HÉireann, whatever, Deputy Director General of Radio Television Éireann. And today we are here to interview someone extremely special, a man loved among all Irelanders, a man whose legacy speaks for itself. Tonight we are interviewing Hilsa and Uachtaráin Cillian Clark. So just nice little clap for Cillian as he comes onto stage. Thank you.
Yay!
Good
Wow.
evening, Ilse. It is so lovely to have you on the couch again. So it's been a while since we last spoke. Let's just start with, how are you?
Well, I am. How am I? I don't know. That's the hardest question you've started. But I'm feeling good. I'm under these lights. I'm in the velvet room, the velvet studio. I mean, everything is just felt tip in here.
The king.
Which actually is not good for the humidity, and you should probably carpet clean. But that's okay. No,
Moist in here.
I'm good. How are you? And yourself?
I'm grand. So I believe Dan has prepared some questions for you. So if Daniel,
I'm Oliver.
Okay, so that's telling me you just haven't prepared
I'm
at all.
Z.
Anywho.
No, I have prepared actually. So.
Okay. Well, I mean, we'll obviously start on the subject of your presidency. It has lasted 1 year at this. Oh my god, I need to stop saying It has lasted over 1 year. What do you believe is your biggest plunder and your biggest success during your time in office so far?
Well, that is certainly a balanced question. I now have to reveal my biggest blunder. I could just do what Margaret Thatcher did. Whenever she was asked a question about her biggest mistake, she would go, a general never reveals his mistake on the battlefield. But I don't think that's a fair answer, and I think she was a horrible woman, so I won't answer it that way. My biggest blunder. I think maybe I won't reveal with what Taoiseach, but with one of my Taoiseach, I think I was new in the job. I was very nervous of how I would present to the public, and I took on a very defensive view of our institutions. And I think the times required that view. They required that brute force. They required that stern attitude. But I think oftentimes there were moments where it wasn't required, where I needed to be a peace builder, a peace broker, and I think I've adopted that characteristic now, and I think I adopted it quickly. But at one particular moment, and I won't reveal when, I think my presidency was a very reactionary one, and I allowed the present needs of the political climate to take over the demands of my office, and I think history will look back on that in retrospect and say it was what was required. That he was simply meeting the challenge of the times. But I think myself personally, in retrospect, I think there were moments where I could have been that peace broker that I am now.
And what about your greatest success?
Oh yes, thank God. I thought this was just going to be depressing. My greatest success. I liked I liked that I've been president throughout this kind of liminal stage where some people in Ireland are going back to the UK and having jobs in the UK, and some people aren't. And some people are getting charged with crimes in the UK, as a matter of fact. That's a nice time to be around in Ireland. I think it's not necessarily my greatest success. There's very little I can attribute my office to, and that's the same with my predecessors. That's not the role of Uachtaráin. It's not an inherently political office. But I think that's probably my greatest success. I think I like that I have been able to, and hopefully that can continue, I should add. This is starting to sound like the final interview. This is the penultimate interview. I like that I've been able to oversee, perhaps, and have my office coincide with a moment in Irish history where we have people reconciling with their friends and their colleagues in the United Kingdom, and myself too.
That is a lovely sentiment. Now, Ahilsa, I have a question for you, and it's more, a personal question, less to do with your office, but to do with some of the relationships you've built in your time in that office, and but outside of it as well, before you took up the office of Uachtaráin. So, on your second inauguration, you were walked into Dublin Castle by your former Taoiseach, Ciara Ní Chonur. I think I said that right. What
Yeah.
made you choose, Ciara, to take up this extremely important role of bringing the president designate to the stage where he will take
Well,
the oath that will ascend him to the highest office in our nation?
well, I didn't select Kira. It shouldn't be known that it's tradition that the Taoiseach walks in the president into Dublin Castle.
So,
But both times I was walked in by the Taoiseach, it was a woman. The first time was Jessica, and this time was Kira. But both accomplished people, I should add. But no, Kira was my Taoiseach actually. So it's funny that she was still Taoiseach when I was walked in. It was actually a matter of circumstance. I didn't expect it to lay out that way. But a very a very devious woman, I should say, a very devious woman in that, if you're looking for someone to join a nation with you, build a long-term strategy to take over with you, and then you do it all by yourself because she gets too busy, and it's fun, it's hilarious. Sometimes in the long term it's hilarious. And so it's absolutely worth it in those moments. Certainly when I was building political moments with her, she was a fantastic partner to have. She was active when I was Taoiseach, fantastic to plan with, very thorough, very detailed, and absolute suicide bomber, I should add. Always sees it through no matter the consequences, which is a terrible characteristic to have, but one that I loved a lot. So that kind of loyalty is hard to come by. People are they very much live in intimidation of what others think of them, and that's a fair way to be. It's important to take other people's feelings into consideration, but don't ever let it govern your life. And Kira certainly didn't do that. She took control of everything she did in such a bombastic and very dangerous manner, but I liked it that way. I thought it was hilarious, and as a political partner, I think definitely my favourite Taoiseach, definitely, and I've been Taoiseach with Dean Heathcote, I've had Brian O'Kearney as my Taoiseach, but Ciara O'Kearney, as she was at the time, and then Ní Chonchar, certainly the best Taoiseach. Fondest moment is in my final time before I left the Dáil, after my second term as Taoiseach, she organised the standing ovation for me, and I was like, why is everyone standing? And then I realised she organised a standing ovation, and some people weren't standing, and I got angry, because A, I want a standing ovation, and B, why aren't you standing if Ciara told you to stand? So I remember screaming at the TDs to stand up, one of them being Oisín Ihicker, by the way. Let's just say they stood up very quickly then, but yeah, a very interesting character.
Well, on the subject of friendships, who do you consider to be one of your greatest friends and biggest supporters during your time in office, either as Taoiseach or president?
Oh, that's a very difficult question. Well, as Taoiseach, it would have to be Ciara. Many late nights planning horrible things, but also I was also gifted with quite the cabinet, I should add. It's not a fair question because I was gifted with a fantastic cabinet. So I had Kamala, I had Lewis. We got onto the permanent 5 in my tenure because of Lewis and William Cathcart. We had so many, I think 32 bills written by Kamala P. completely unmatched to this day, I should add. I had a good circle in every office I've held. As president, I would have to say my predecessors, such is the nature of being a predecessor, they have the best advice. If you're in a difficult circumstance, I often don't seek their counsel immediately, which is a mistake. Sometimes I'm stubborn and I say, no, I want to be the one to figure this out. I want to be the one to figure this out with people who aren't my predecessors. But then when I do seek their advice, I realize I should have done this a while ago. Um, Certainly, yeah. So I would say my predecessors, Oscar, very helpful for events. I don't like holding events as president, so when I do them, I try to go all out, and no one is better at those things than Oscar. And I have to say, it would be remiss if I didn't mention the two people sitting on the couches opposite me, both very willing to assist me in probably the strangest endeavors a president could embark on. I have by no means have I been an ordinary president, and you two have certainly adapted to my striking personality, we'll say.
That is beautiful. So, Cillian, throughout your career, you have built so many friendships, bonds, and found so much joy in being part of the Irish community. How do you find time on top of the duties of your office to still engage with the community, which is more to do with your office, your people?
Well, that's a good question. I think maybe other presidents have struggled with that. I mean, I find that Lynette probably didn't enjoy the nature of being president because all her time would be spent, doing those boring ceremonial duties, and then she'd come online and she'd realize she'd have to do it all over again. I think myself and Sequatic were similar in that the lines were very blurred. When I do things as president, I try to get it done very quickly, and then, I mean, I'm sure most people can attest that I just sit in general chat a lot of the time. I really have a genuine fondness of the people that speak there because we live in a very talented and intelligent community. But I haven't had trouble with that because when the duty of the office calls, I try to complete it to the best of my ability as quickly as I can, and that doesn't take much time. And then I spend the rest of my time on needless and unimportant things, which is important. It is important in the office that you can be. I don't know if I'll touch on this point now or later, but I'll touch on it now just in case I can't. You can be a ceremonial president, but you don't have to be. I think the best presidents have not been completely impartial. I have not been an impartial president. I don't like to claim I'm an impartial president because the best presidents aren't. Presidents should be partial to to the interest of the community. They should be partial to the interest of the community's people. They should be partial presidents on many, many issues and advocates, and they don't necessarily have to be reformers, but presidents do have to be partial in many ways. And I don't like when people assess different Uachtaráin as having been very impartial, very not very biased. I don't like those terms. I think they're you can't measure a president that way. It doesn't work that way.
Well, touching upon more on your presidency, and I think you touched up upon one of the ideals here. As president, you act as the figurehead of our country. I ask, what does Ireland mean to you? When you represent Ireland, what are the core ideas you spread, and typically ones you've held throughout your time in Ireland?
I remember when I became president, it was my predecessor, my immediate predecessor's. It wasn't my immediate predecessor, I lied. It was Sequatic who told me, and it was a weird thing to reconcile with. He said, you have to be the face of the community in many ways. People will begin to completely, well, they had done it, they had been doing it for quite some time already, years already, but you will begin to very explicitly be the face of the community, whether you like it or not. And I think that is one of the best characterizations of the office, because you do have to be the face of the community. You do have to represent how it operates. In many ways, I'm a group staff apologist, because once group staff implements something, it takes the effect in the community, and then I very much have to represent that, and that's an easy job to have in Ireland, because oftentimes you can defend our moderation, because our moderation makes good decisions based on very horrible people that Slavs wouldn't do and other groups wouldn't do. And so for me, it's been easy to be the face of the community. I've been doing it for a while anyway, but I think that would be one of the other things you must reconcile an office with.
That is just a beautiful answer. So, Cillian, you went from being one of the most politically active Labourites Ireland has ever seen to becoming what some see as this very wise, compassionate individual. Whilst you still have outbursts and tangents in the general chat, what happened to the old Cillian? Do you think you had to change yourself for this office, or has the office changed you?
Um, that's a very interesting question. I think I think you're absolutely right in saying that I am always going to be prone to those tantrums. By the way, those outbursts of "God, I hate Facilio and I hope he dies." I mean, I think ultimately everyone is responsible for those from time to time. But I don't think that Cillian left. I think that Cillian is still here, just a little different. And the ideals I push in real politics, it's very different. You know, I the policies that they fight for in the Dáil have ultimately very, very little to do with my office. Maybe the essence and the principles of them do. So if they're introducing a bill that maybe undermines the press, I won't come out and condemn the bill. That's not what my office does. It can do that, but it's not what it should. It would be pushing and challenging the limits of the office if I did that. But I think this Cillian, the presidential Cillian, is one who I have to be very universal in what I say, and I think all presidents have striven to do that. I think they should continue to do so, but you have to be very ambiguous. Not necessarily ambiguous, that's the wrong word. You have to be very universal. That's the word I'd like to use. Very universal in what you say, very thematic, and you have to draw different motifs because you can't fight individual political battles anymore. And that's why I think I suit the office, or rather I suited the office when they were considering candidates, because I didn't want to fight individual political battles anymore. Even in the civil service, if something arises, I don't check those channels anymore. I really don't. You'd have to draw my attention to them, and the day-to-day arguments that happen in government, I don't get involved in them, unless it's a matter of really behaviour. The only time I would ever get myself involved in government is if someone is being nasty, and then I would say, okay, stop. I don't get involved in individual political battles anymore. It's a waste of my time. It's going to be a waste of my office's time, and the people around me. It's going to be a waste of their time. It's not my job all the time. So, but the Cillian that you talk about is it's still there. It's just fighting in a very, very different and stranger way, I would say. And certainly, you're right, because I never wanted to be president. I never imagined myself as president. Now, that being said, I'm sitting here, so that very quickly changed. But I never wanted to be president. I hated the idea of being a ceremonial role. I did enjoy the rough and tumble of the Dáil. I really revelled in it. But ultimately it called. I answered Ireland's call. I picked up the phone, and now I'm sitting here with you, a second-rate journalist.
Watch your mouth, because you will be on your arse outside, okay?
Well, dwelling further on past Cillian, if you could say one thing to your former self, or to multiple versions, like your first term, or your first time as Taoiseach, or second time, etc., what would you say to yourself during those times? And would you have said anything that'd make a significant change to how Ireland would be now?
I think I would say perhaps in my first term I would have been a lot more progressive. I remember Kamala Piba, she was my Minister for Justice, and she was saying you need to push something on the Seanad. Now, this is a poor example because I didn't actually want to do much with the Seanad. I didn't feel abolition was right. I didn't feel reform was right. So it's a bad example. But let's say, for example, I was really progressive on the Seanad. I wouldn't have implemented a referendum. I felt I have to be careful. My government had the biggest majority in the Dáil in Irish history because of my coalition with the second largest party. It was ridiculously large. Our benches were constantly full. Diarmuid O'Donovan did his best in the opposition. But because it was my first term as Taoiseach, I was really threading the line, and I feel that's something similar with most Taoiseach. So if you mark my 3 terms, even though as much as I want to forget the third term, if you chart my 3 terms out, I become increasingly progressive because I realise your time in politics is not long. You have to try to get as much as you want done. And when I was given the biggest majority in the Dáil in Irish history, I didn't do enough with it. I felt more could have been done, and I was told that as well by many people, Conor Novak included. So perhaps I should have heeded their advice. But looking back, I would also say I should have been stricter. I think I managed backbenchers quite well. But there were times where ministers could have been very belligerent, and I should have, especially in term 2, and I should have said, look, put your foot down. Ultimately, all politicians are replaceable. You might not find one that is as good, you might find one that is perhaps a little bad, but as long as you can do the work for them, I find, I should have really acknowledged that politicians are replaceable, but that those are the lessons I'm learning from my term as Taoiseach. I've yet to learn just as many lessons from my time in the Oris, so we'll see.
Um, when you first became president, what was your feeling in that exact moment? You had just taken the oath, you had just left Dublin Castle, the campaign was done, your time was up, you were now in the spotlight for the next 7 months, and now, as we know, for another 7 months. How did that make you feel? How do you feel about this overbearing pressure that you are the face of Ireland and you constantly are being watched, judged, and critiqued? How does that make you feel, Cillian?
That was well, in the moment, it was really terrifying. We're past watershed, by the way, aren't we? We can swear.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was terrifying. I can say this with absolute certainty. Every single president who came before me did not feel terrified. They had done a lot before they got the office, and that's not to say I didn't do a lot, but they had done a lot in a presidential way. They had really prepared and had been groomed for the office, and I was not. I was not. I was not an Oris person. I did not enjoy the idea of being president. So by the time I actually came around to being president, I knew a lot would have to change. I would have to fight my political battles differently, like I just spoke about. Those changes were not easy. I was terrified of them. And though I had faced quite a lot of scrutiny for Ireland before, after unification, Ireland was constantly scrutinised as a group, and especially when we got our permanent 5 seat, we were the next target. If we became slightly inactive, we would be up for removal. The British people, the British establishment, I should say, would swarm Twitter, they would swarm the channel and say, oh, here we go again, look how bad this group is getting. And though I wasn't president, I would often be the first to respond, and other people in the group would sit in general chat and they'd say, they have a point. I wouldn't settle for that. I was very defensive of the group. And so I was ready for that level of scrutiny from foreign counterparts, perhaps. But I don't think I really understood the monumentous scrutiny you would face from everyone in the group, because ultimately you will be cycling through Taoiseach. You will have members of the Dáil asking for advice too. You will have not just foreign dignitaries, but people from within Ireland scrutinising you. And that was a thought I had to reconcile with too. That was difficult. I think I've done a very good job with that. I will be egotistical for that answer. I think I did a very good job with the scrutiny of the office. But I think unlike other presidents, I was not as prepared for what was to come, mentally, like emotionally, whatever. And that was a terrifying thought in that moment. As I took the oath, as I realized that the people on that stage, some of them would answer to me, and then even scarier ones, I would be answerable to. That was a strange moment. You get a lot of imposter syndrome, but particularly myself, I wasn't Sequatic, I wasn't Conor Novak, I was not Lynette. So that kind of imposter syndrome, it was only amplified.
Again, so focusing on the subject of your presidency, Are you satisfied with your presidency? Is there anything significant you'd like to do before your term is over? Obviously, I understand there are probably other significant things that you'd like to do when the moment arises, but currently, do you have anything in mind that you want to accomplish before your term is over?
Well, I think perhaps I'd like to do a few more foreign visits. I'm not a foreign affairs person. I don't like doing those organized events. I like to do things very spur of the moment. I'm sure you guys can agree. I don't enjoy those planned wait, show up moments. But I'd like to do a few more foreign affairs trips, hop on the plane a few more times, burn a few more carbon emissions into the ozone layer before I leave this office. I'm sure, by the way, that's not to say that they have been hard to organize. I've been contacted so many times in office. I will probably continue to be contacted despite the fact I will depart office soon. It's strange, but I would like to hold a few more foreign visits perhaps, or indeed welcome foreign dignitaries to Oris on Uachtaráin. That would be just as good. I find I hadn't done diplomacy before. I'd never been Minister for Foreign Affairs. I was never interested in that department, but I find that foreign dignitaries really enjoy me. And I remember it
Oh,
was
do you
either
remember
William
Russia?
Cathcart. Go on, Russia. When did we do
Oh, wait.
Russia?
What? Oh, no, that was Sunday. Sorry.
Yeah, I remember. I was like, I don't remember me. I remember we did Thailand though, and God, it was like drawing blood from a stone doing foreign visits because I used to do them as Taoiseach with William Cathcart, and he was not interested in small talk. Let me just say, we would sit there maximum 30 minutes. He would ask them about development, activity, games, and I remember people being like, "Wow, William is a genius, and how does he talk to them so strategically?" It was nothing. That was not strategy. That was William trying his hardest to look interested in these United Nations bureaucrats. And I remember thinking, is this really the best he can do? Like, I know he's a strategic mastermind, but surely you can at least try appear interested. So when we met with Thailand, I did try to have a good time, and I did. I'm not a foreign visit person, but I did speak to them nicely, I would say. And it was either William or someone else, and I think it was William because I distinctly remember him, not really enjoying that side of things. But I'm sure Oscar will correct me. It was someone was like, "Wow, you're really good at making small talk. Do you ever shut up?" And I remember being like, "Wow, that's not only is that fucking hilarious, but also, yeah, I guess I am." And I remember thinking, "Wow, maybe I can do the affairs thing." Haven't done a state visit since. Met the Pope, brought the Pope here. That was probably the only other state visit I've done. So maybe we should do more, guys.
Well, once again, touching on friendship, you have forged and lost so many friends through your office and through the responsibilities that accompany it. With the friends you have lost, the people you've had to cut off, how did you go about that? How did having to change your circles and your involvements and your alignments feel?
Well, I think the best way to talk about this is a lot of people had to do what I do with my job in 2022 when we unified. A lot of friendships were broken. That was extremely difficult, and I partially feel bad, but also I envy the people who weren't here before 2022 because the close bond between Sovs and Ireland, it was we didn't know we had it. We didn't know we had it so good. You don't know what you have until you lose it. Grass is always greener, etc. That's not to say that we weren't entitled to the 6 counties in that moment. That's not to say that it was an unjust war. But all I'm saying is the status in our relationship before 2022, it was incredible. If you were in Ireland, you were in Sovs. If you were in Sovs, you weren't necessarily in Ireland. But if you were a politician in Sovs, you were more than likely 8 out of 10 times in Ireland. And it was strange. It was liminal looking back. I had a career in Sovs. Sequatic had a very successful career in Sovs. I will say though, I had more friends in Sovs than C did. Nobody liked C. But I mean, I had many friends in Sovs, close ones too. And 2022 was difficult because even though we were close, there was always going to be a fundamental disagreement. So I think I was prepared for that part of being president. I should preface everything I say by saying I'm never the one to cut people off. I haven't cut that many people off because of my job. But if they have, harsh feelings about the decisions I've had to make, I've never been the one to say, this means we can't be friends. This means we can't talk. I've let it up to them. They can take it or leave it. Ultimately, they do end up coming back, and that's not like a sassy way or a very egotistical way of being like, oh, they always come back. It's a genuine pattern that at some point they realize that it's not that significant, and maybe they don't move on, but they certainly reconcile with it. So I think that's interesting. But yeah, 2022, that happened on a much larger scale. People picked sides, and the tension that was there, the isolation, that feeling of isolation, I've never had it in a community before. It was so strange. And people you spoke to overnight, you suddenly have no business dealings with them. You don't share anything in common with them. You lose everything you've worked together on. And especially when you're in the dawn of a career, it's odd because Conor Novak had time in the UK. He had a long career in the UK. He had accomplished himself. Seaquatic was perhaps content with leaving the UK because he had done everything he needed to do. He could have been Prime Minister probably, but he probably had no interest. He departed. Lynette didn't give it a second thought. Bjork obviously didn't give it a second thought. And Dan Wesley's, God rest his soul, underneath Trinity now probably. But I found it strange, probably. I found it strange, and I do hope that we can get back to that degree of proximity, of close proximity. And I asked William Cathcart recently, should I become an MP or something after I'm president? I don't know if that's a good idea anymore, because, what does that say about your president? He's only worth an MP if we were to exchange him. That's a poor exchange rate now. That's the Eurozone. But I think something has to be done to get that proximity back, to show you can be in both communities, to show that you're often in both communities, and to be active in both communities. That's the most important thing. To be active in both communities, it makes it more visible. But yeah, that's what I'll say on that question.
Talking more about your time as a Taoiseach. What a lovely answer, by the way. But yeah, more about being Taoiseach. What do you think made you a good Taoiseach? And do you believe that you should have been made Taoiseach or someone else should have been?
That's a great question. I think the moment where I did become Taoiseach was correct. I think it was the correct moment, because if I hadn't become Taoiseach in January of 2023, I probably would have gone into this circle of defeatism like Gig'em 15, where I don't know, say cringe things like, oh, I'm not worth it, people would never elect me. It's really awful. But yeah, I think in that moment it was certain. I think I'm very confident in that was the right result. And I think the biggest other option was either in this order, Dinar Heathcote or Diarmuid O'Donovan. Diarmuid, I think maybe he could have taken over in the second term instead of going straight to a general election. I think that could have been fun. Or maybe a bit later in the summer, so he had more time to be active. I think Diarmuid it was right that we made Diarmuid Taoiseach. We meaning the electorate, by the way, not the Electoral Commission. I think it was right that we made Diarmuid Taoiseach. He was a good Taoiseach. I think it was right that I was Taoiseach instead of Dinar Heathcote, because I think there was this perception. He brought a lot of people from the UK with him, and there was this perception that he won huge votes, just unbelievable votes in the summer of the United Kingdom. He's going to sweep Ireland too, and he not only that, he's close friends with Conor. He's close friends with quote unquote the deep state. There was this perception that Ireland was going to be taken over by a Brit now, and it wasn't necessarily present in the campaign because people liked Dean, Irish people liked Dean, but I think there was, in the back of his mind anyway, a sense of entitlement and I think he'll disagree with me on that one, but there was certainly a sense of entitlement from him at the time of, I'm a good politician, I deserve to win, and I won hugely in the UK, this is going to be a clean sweep. He brought over his UK strategist, Tony Blair, who was ingenious. He also a bit of a nerd though, used to write out the election results in real life. What a nerd. But I don't know, I never let it happen. And it's also goes without saying I had the support of Tom and Valorist as well. There's a screenshot in No Context Ireland. That was probably the height of my campaign. It was very funny. And it was just 3 DM message requests. And it's just me, Tom, and Val saying the same thing but different versions. I'd be like, I would say hi. because everyone knows I'm the leader of Labour, I wouldn't copy and paste. I would just say hi. Val and Tom would copy and paste something along the lines of "I'm reaching out from Labour, just wondering if you're voting." It was a hilarious image. It showed that we had a campaign going, even if it was just the three of us. It was the highest turnout election in Ireland. I had a suspicion that would happen because this guy from the UK really, really competing, bringing over votes. Importing is the right word, I would say.
Bringing
well,
over votes.
not really, because it wasn't a strategic importing. Yeah, bringing over votes in not in a strategic or intentional sense, but it happened. People in the UK were also in Ireland. Politicians and voters in the UK would be in Ireland at the time, and they hadn't quite left all of a sudden, so they would be voting for him. And I knew it was going to be hard. I did not think I would win. Shout out to, at the time, God, what was her username at the time? I think it would have been Corbin Osborne or something at the time. Shout out to Corbin Osborne, who told me I would win. I didn't believe her. I did end up winning the highest turnout election. So I have that medal on my belt, and I think it was right. I think it was right.
Oh, well. Yeah. Well, we know as a community and through the wise words of successor and spiritual father. Second, I got an intruder.
She's got an intruder.
Oh dear.
You should ask her a question, Dan, before she comes back and steals it from you. No, it's okay. She's just deafened. You can ask her. If you have a short one there, look for a short one.
I mean, I could. Okay, you spoke about the relationship between the UK and Ireland. Do you think that the communities could be as close as they once were? Just keep it short, I suppose.
Well, I'm gonna answer Dan's question if that's okay with you, Niamh. He asked you really quickly while you were dead. You were shot.
Ireland.
It's definitely possible. All it takes is really the Irish political class, not necessarily the Taoiseach, but 90% of the Irish political class becoming active in the UK. If that means becoming an MP, so be it. I'm pretty sure they sit at different times. Becoming an MP, opening a business. Media was a big thing. We had media companies. If you were registered in the UK, you were registered in Ireland. It worked that way. It's the way things worked. A lot of formidable politicians came from Northern Ireland. The Chancellor of the Exchequer, I believe he's still the Chancellor now, Bushbury. He was Northern Irish First Minister. I groomed him to be First Minister. He was not necessarily talented, by the way, so I have no idea how he got this job that he has nowadays. But Andre Hodge, perhaps the most... I don't think Andre Hodge would even know me if I DM'd him right now. I suspect he's dead. But Andre Hodge, British Prime Minister for the Liberal Democrats, I believe, or the Literal Democrats, whatever it was called. He ran a fantastic campaign in 2021, 2022, and it was Things Can Only Get Better. It was a masterclass in politics. Formidable PM, formidable politician, and he came from Northern Ireland. He ran Sinn Féin as a British person, I'm pretty sure. He ran Hodge World News. That was registered in the Commonwealth in Ireland, because like I said, if you were registered in the UK, you were registered in Ireland. That proximity, I don't want to be imposing or to patronize you or talk down to you, but if you weren't here before the unification, it's very hard to understand. It's very hard to describe. It's just that proximity. I think we can get it back. It will require a large amount of work. And I certainly hate. I'm not going to name names, but there's probably been one person who is in Ireland in the UK and who has tried to say that there isn't a stigma. We're not going to try that word today. I haven't had herbal tea. Is it stigmatism?
It is, yeah.
Stigmatism. Okay, there is a stigmatism
around something.
Yes, that's the word. There is a stigmatism surrounding being Irish or being in the Irish group or having a job in Ireland in the UK. And I think to pretend that it's just Ireland with the hostility. There's no hostility between the group's management, I will say. There's no hostility, probably even between the governments. But there is a stigmatism between the people. And it's really a crazy thing. I think Ireland has abandoned it for the most part. I mean, you have your president here saying that wishes things weren't the way they were. But certainly the people of Britain. I've always said that the president is the sentimental leader of the country, and if there is a sentimental leader of some kind in the UK, he needs to point them, or she needs to point them in the direction I'm trying to push Ireland in. That reconciliation, it's more than just peace. I think we require, or gay, or that clip of Rihanna, he, she, we, they, them, just all of them, just all of them. I think we need Caesar. Hi, I'm Oliver. I think we
Oliver.
need we need that. Peace isn't enough. It's not enough to have a peace agreement. You need reconciliation, and that reconciliation is more than peace. It's that extra step, and I do think we require it.
Well, I think from that answer we can really tell that Cillian is dying to be invited to Parliament, like Miggledy was, to give a speech about reconciliation.
Would love
However,
that. Let's get it done.
as if no, we know as a community, and through the wise words of your predecessor, spiritual father of Ireland, yourself as well, Conor Novak, that Ireland is truly, and I say this with no reservation or hesitation, it's special. Ireland is extremely special. To you, what makes Ireland what makes Ireland completely different to other groups? Because look, when I was on my retreat from Ireland, we'll call it that, I tried going to other groups, but they were like horrible, like racism and homophobia, like everywhere. So tell me, Cillian, what do you think makes Ireland Ireland?
Well, God, I feel like I've answered this many times in many ways. I don't want to repeat myself too much. I will start with, I think there's maybe 3 important pillars that distinguishes Ireland. Well, maybe 1.5, 2.5 maybe. Tolerance. Ireland is obviously a very tolerant place. That can be eroded quickly. We've seen both in real life and among other groups how quickly that can be put on its head, completely eroded. The tolerance is a maintained thing. It's not something that is put in place and then absolute. And I think Ireland has been able to maintain that. There have been very challenging times. There perhaps have been times where it wasn't upheld, but it can be quick to return if you put in the hard work that I think the Irish group does. So tolerance is a big thing. All of my presidential statements probably mention tolerance of some kind in it, and I think my very first inauguration speech spoke on that. My inaugural address touched on that very deeply, about how tolerance is what makes Ireland advance. It's what progresses Ireland. Because ultimately what distinguishes you from other countries, that's what you can innovate in. That's what you can use to succeed. So if we are different to other countries because of our tolerance, we need to push in on that. Let's not import ideas of fear or hatred or extremism. Also, I will say the second pillar, second/third pillar, is our concentration of talent and our intelligence. Up until recently, I did not think Ireland was more intelligent than other Rho nations. I thought Rho nations was pretty generic in its methodology. But it certainly is more intelligent than their country. I will say that having spent time in Solves, the political class, not necessarily the government. I have no reservations about the British government. I'm quite close with the Prime Minister, I would say, or rather the former Prime Minister, James B. Monty, JBM. But the British political class, it lacks the longest running statesman in British history, which is quite depressing, by the way. You need to resign, Dean. Maybe they're doing you a favour. They launched a vote of confidence in Dean as Speaker. He's obviously doing a fine job to get people to hate him that much. I think it's strange what the British political class once had. It must have gone when we went, I suppose. It must have left when we left, but it's not what it once was. And obviously that concentration of talent, when it comes to winning elections, when it comes to politics, Ireland plays politics. We got on to the P5 despite being what? We're not exactly the biggest nation out there. We're no Canada. We're no UK.
Excuse me, don't don't like try bring us down to Canada's level. They are actually smaller than us now, and
Absolutely,
they
yeah.
are extremely awful, inactive,
Oh,
abysmal,
well, that's
racist.
different. At the time, they had a huge reputation. Nowadays, if one of the I won't
Like
say that actually. I'll
800
refrain from that
members.
sentence. It's got a few members. The membership is
Got
huge, but it's all
800 in
the
the
retired
server.
people. It's all retired people. It's all people who don't speak in the server anymore. Canada is dead. That's what happens. Not naming names, but if you're Matthew J. Ainsley, that's what happens when you rig elections.
Not
People
naming names,
leave.
but Matthew J. Ainsley.
Not naming names, but I don't like Matthew J. Ainsley, and he is the name. It's
Possibly the name.
By the way, at the height of unification, we had Canada on our side. What was going on in 2022? I'm just starting now in the middle of
What
this interview,
on
I'm
earth?
developing a nostalgia. Literally, I'm developing a nostalgia for unification. Look what you've done. You've changed my mind completely. But no, Ireland is hugely talented. I don't know why. I really don't know why. I don't know what makes that happen, but I know that's what makes Ireland special. You cannot have neurodiverse. Oh God, the bombshell, the elephant in the room. You've just said it. You've just said it. Get out. No, Ireland
Wow.
does. It does have a huge. You didn't need to say that. It does have a huge talent. I don't know where I'm trying to think now. I don't know where it comes from. Just have leaders with such, not all the time, but typically, and other nations can't say the same. Leaders with such grit, with such determination, and even if it's just political will, even if it's just the one, even if it's just the desire for power, they get it done, and they want it, and they yearn for it, and that's what we. When Ireland sends its best, it is sending their brightest. So and I think we have certainly a lot of brightness to offer in both tolerance and talent.
I'm gonna ask a few questions that we asked on the previous stream just to see if anything's changed on them. These should be relatively quite short. But on the previous stream, I asked, would you like to remain involved in Ireland after your term is over? You responded that you most likely wouldn't, apart from things like Al Jazeera, before you resigned from there as well. Has any of that changed? Do you plan on doing anything else in Ireland now?
Well, a lot of people don't like my answer. A lot of people have said,
A lot of people don't like
"Can you stick around just to?" But people don't like me. Yeah, that's what I was about to say. A lot of people say, "Can you go sooner?" And I say, "Please, no." And no, a lot of people are like, "I'll pack your
Going as fast
bags."
as
I have an
can.
Oris.
I'm getting my Zimmer frame.
I'm literally, guys. I can't sign the papers any quicker. Have patience. But no, a lot of people have actually said like, well, can you at least answer DMs afterwards? Blah blah. I'm not going to guarantee that. It's strange because you go from being the moral compass of a country, or at least its moral agitator in many ways, to being someone who you can't really seek counsel with because they're not around. And even since before I was president, I had the wildest conversations with people I didn't know very well. People just like to trauma dump on me, I guess, and I suppose I'm useful for that. I mean, if I told you some of the stories I heard in the DMs, you'd have to open a ticket probably. Both on me and for your own safety. But no, um, I suspect that I want to see. I know it's the strangest thing ever. This is what really makes me a weird president. I really want Al Jazeera to be a long-term thing. I want 2 election nights before I leave, and I like Al Jazeera. I think Al Jazeera is good talent. I wanted to have at least maybe 2 journalists that will stay there forever to do tweets and broadcasts.
Stolen talent.
What names did you just say?
I said stolen talent.
Oh, that's not that. You can't say that.
Yes,
can't say
I work here.
Excuse me. No. I suppose my answer stays the same. Really. I just find it strange that people don't like the answer. I mean, I thought you wanted me out of here, guys. You can't change your mind now the moment I threaten to do it. That doesn't work that way. Cowards. Cowards, let the old man leave. Cowards, unlock the door. Let me out. This isn't an escape room. I found all the tasks. Get me out of here.
I'm Anuk Throng, get me out of here. Sorry.
No, no,
You should be
no, we're
kind
not
of
doing
need
that show. No, no. It's kind of funny
kind of
though. Do
need
you work here?
a fucking marker, yeah. Oh, is it my question? Okay. So,
Yeah.
moving our focus back to Ireland and our in-house affairs. We know that Ireland is a group driven by its balance between hard work and, most importantly, having a laugh. Do you think that this more comedic approach to Ireland and its politics is in fact productive? Or do you think that it is harming Ireland and its appearance on the world stage?
It really, really pisses me off. It really, like, we, when we were first a country, obviously we were completely serious. Row Nations it's taken very seriously. They do it. I'm immediately drawing a parallel between us and the UK because I think it's true. They do a lot of pissing around in the UK. If you check their government channel, it's stupid, and I think they're down the same avenue that we are with Row, where we mix too much of the fun with work. You need to compartmentalize. I mean, we should strive when you become Taoiseach and you start a government. You should strive to have people be able to scroll through your government posts and not see a serious joke, maybe an edit before you leave office, sent into the channel, maybe an edit as you enter office, so maybe 2 maximum edits. In between, you should not see shit posting on the government Twitter. You should not do events that are too silly. And I think if you're going to take the job, do it right, do it properly. And I think when we were first, that's not to say I'm a completely conservative politician who thinks we should regress into the past, because the past was only serious because that was what was required of us. We were a new nation. Most importantly, we were all branded as Fenians in 2020 when this first started. And Connor was a Fenian. He was the Fenian. His bio, I don't know if it still says it, but it says famed Fenian Nobel laureate. He was a Fenian, and he won the Nobel Prize in 2021 actually. But you need
Quivy.
to. No, say it.
I was literally just saying Quivian because he is too a Nobel laureate.
It should have been me, by the way. For those listening, should. But no,
That attitude is why you don't have a Nobel Peace Prize.
he had a worse attitude. He wanted to. I won't even go into it. He's just a horrible person. That's all you need to know. But no, I think I've answered the question aptly anyway. But I think that we need to compartmentalize. We need to be able to say, okay, we can shitpost in general chat, even in the government chat, but in the government channel, you need to look clean, aesthetic. Oscar Sullivan did that very well. Can't remember Neve's government. Neve, if I went through your government posts, would I
Honey,
see?
I made jokes about ethnic cleansing.
Oh.
Oh. Genuinely, I don't know what was going on, but it was not.
Oh,
It was
that's
not
not
governing in a way.
That's not. You
Like,
can't do that. Did they cancel you, or sorry? Did I just hear that
no,
correctly? Gen Z is trying to cancel NiamhMcNamara.
I think it was when I was like, well, my first post that wasn't my appointment statement was 2 days after my appointment, and it was like between that was complete silence, like nothing, and it was a happy birthday to you with an with like some edits,
Oh my
and then
god.
and then it was like my last post was a joke about ethnic cleansing, like in a Kamala Harris accent or something. But there was no governing, there was no nothing. It was really just like a wild ride. I mean,
Oh, it
there was an
was.
edit of my cabinet reshuffle with Gigam in it, which is kind of crazy.
Oh. You were posting Force no Gaeilge words. You were.
Yeah. It was
You had a family portrait for a reshuffle. That's crazy. I didn't know you could do that. Wow,
good.
that's fun.
I posted something about Black History Month.
As you do, you know.
do. There were more happy birthday posts than there was policy. Because there was no policy.
Here's a message from her government. Disclaimer, that's not my school email, but a domain I own. Don't ask, lol.
That was Andrew Rensburg's fault.
I'm a fighter, not a quitter. I have revoked my resignation as a TD. I hope I remembered as a lettuce. Oh God. Well,
Um,
anyway,
we
no,
write our
I
own
think
history.
we need to compartmentalize. We need to, work hard and play hard. It's that simple. Let's not mix both. Let's try. It's literally just a competition of what government can make Ireland look the best. That's how I view it. That's how the deep state. If you want to get on with the deep state, that's how they're going to view it. Which government? If you're a government, you should be aiming to make Ireland look good on the world stage. And that's, I know it's a boring part of every party's manifesto and every election debate, but it's so important. It's easy as well. It's so easy to just look like a good government. You just post boring stuff, and suddenly you're the most approved of on the P5. It's crazy. Literally, who knew that you just have to bare minimum?
Mm.
Again, the final question from the previous stream I just wanted to ask. I expect this to be quite short, but if you have any additional thoughts, I'd be happy to hear them. I asked, if able to, would you take a third term as president? I believe you responded again that you wouldn't. Is this answer still the same? And what are your thoughts on other people potentially considering doing this, if they were to become president?
I would. I'm hearing talk of this Oscar guy becoming president, and we need to stop that. We need to make sure that doesn't happen. Unfortunately, that is a huge threat to us and our neighborhoods, and that needs to stop. Um, thank you. Thank you for that, Neve. Thank you. Can you do it louder next time?
Yeah.
I probably no. I don't know. It's a strange question. If I could do a third term and it was generally accepted, I would. Not because I want 3 terms, but because I don't know. I've always been very uneasy about the future of Ireland. I've always been very like. I faced many challenges in my time in office that I thought even I couldn't do. So you're asking a lot of a president when their term is coming to an end to trust that their successor will fight battles not just as hard as you did, but harder than they think they can do themselves. That's a huge asking of both the current president, and it's a huge asking of the incoming president. Will they fight to defend, in some cases the status quo, in other cases to reform, as hard as you did? I have been able to do that quite easily now as president. It comes as second nature to me. But I have had some Taoiseach that were difficult to deal with. We didn't have aligning visions, and I had to the challenge, the very constitutional challenges of my office were pushed. They were challenged, and thankfully they held firm. Thankfully I held them firm. I didn't think there were times where I didn't think I could. So you're asking a lot to trust, both emotionally and predictably. Do I anticipate that my successor will have that grit and determination? It's a worrying thing. If I could, I would do a third term, so I don't have to feel that worry and delay it. But at the same time, what good is that? Just let it happen, and what will be will be. Que sera, sera. I don't know.
Okay, gay.
Italian. You can't call Italian gay. That's racist.
No, that's racist.
Gen Z's trying to cancel NiamhMcNamara.
What the hell? Was that my question there? No. Yeah. No.
No, it's your turn.
No,
You
that
ask a question.
was your turn, Neve. Yeah.
Well, Cillian, this is really going to come from my heart because I have run out of my pre-planned questions.
Yeah,
So
you need
this
to be more
could-
emotional. You're being very bitchy.
So just imagine I'm, reaching across the divide, across this table. My long, slender hand is reaching on your knee.
Well.
I'm slowly, caressing. And we have spoken.
Make
a
it
lot
stop.
about-
Make it stop.
No.
Okay.
You'll sit there and you'll like it. Okay. We have spoken a lot. We have spoken a lot about evil solves and whatever else that what is it? Burdens us as a people. But now I want to talk about you, and I want to talk about your family, and not just as an Algerian Muslim, the first Muslim to hold the office of Uachtaráin na hÉireann, actually. But I don't think this is widely known, but at the inauguration, he took the oath with the Quran present.
No, hold on a second. Ring the
So
guards. No, no.
that's the reason Conor Novak couldn't be there in person because he wouldn't be in the but anyways, I want to talk about your family and the importance of your clan to you and how that has, weighed in on your work as president, Taoiseach, whatever else. Because there was a time when I was Taoiseach, you were president, we had the Garda Commissioner, the Oireachtas Secretary General, all in the one household.
You're
So,
saying the quiet part out loud. You're not meant to do that.
well, it wasn't, is it? Like we all are. Well, we all air quote. We all air quotes
Well,
earn our
well.
places. We all air quote earn our places. Um, but yeah, how 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 do you feel about your family and what role do they play in your life and your career as president?
Well, the Clarks have. It's always been a very relaxed clan. All I ask is that you don't go and argue with each other in public because that's like weird. Um, I've never taken it too seriously though. I've never taken it too seriously. I've asked you the most I've asked. Believe it or not, some people think it's a lot to ask for. Everyone in the clan has probably had moments where they think it's a stupid rule. But I've just asked you not to treat each other like shit every now and then, and you've both had varying degrees of reaction to that on their person. But no, I've literally I've asked them to just emulate the tolerance that we all want in Ireland, because until they do, because we were a high profile family at the time, I would say. And until we did,
Downhill, possibly.
not anymore. We're kind of down the gutter now, and that's okay. No, I would say we're still a very high profile family. Everyone, when I go into the Clark family group chat,
Everyone hates the Clarks.
they do. I think we've alienated ourselves with our power. When I first became president, C said we can't control everything, and I said okay. I lied. Ultimately, I did lie to C because we ended up. I fibbed. I told a fib. No, they've been important, and I think a lot of my time with the Clarks has always been this big, imposing maternal and paternal figure. I have to be both genders now in this day and age. Any good parent does, and I've always been very imposing on. I'll use Neve as my generic Clark. I've always been very imposing, and I've said it many times, frustratingly, in the Clark family group chat. I don't want my legacy on how I've treated that clan to be like an anxiety about it. Like, oh my god, if Cillian saw this, he'd freak out. Cillian saw this, he'd freak out. I was never really like that. As much as you challenged me, I was never really here comes dad with the belt. I was never that person. Also, I could never be that person. So, that's
child. Why do you think we're so fucked up?
Literally the most spoiled children on earth. Mother, let me need you. But I don't know. I've wanted my legacy to be that when I've treated you horribly, it was out of a deep, profound love and affection, and when I've treated you lovely, it's because it's for the same reasons. And that's the problem. The Clarks don't see it. A lot of people who aren't a Clark have probably seen it. I have fought tooth and nail for that clan. I have defended people in that clan, probably to my own, downfall. I've been more than willing to lose friends over it. I've been told, why don't you go ask to be a Novak? Why aren't you an O'Neill? I was begged by both C and Lynn to take their surnames, and I think that was also out of affection. I don't think it was anything malicious, but I don't know. It wouldn't feel right because the people in the Clark clan, I've helped them in many ways. They've got there themselves in many ways. So it's not fair that Lewis has said, instead you will be a Doherty. I will sooner drink bleach and swim the English Channel than I would be a Doherty, and that's okay.
Mini fridge restock with the Doherty dozen. Tonight, I'm taking Bebop to the K-pop store.
Oh.
Sorry, quickly moving away from your Clark family, and more to do with real life. It's quite an odd question, but in a recent question of the day answer, you said you wanted to be a primary school teacher. Do you think you've learned any lessons from here in Ireland,
Though.
typically with your presidency, but maybe any other experience that you may take with you into, say, any future careers like being a primary school teacher?
Other than patience, no, no. This other than patience, ronations. It doesn't prepare you for any job unless that job requires patience and obviously a political job. Other than that, ronations is literally probably a detriment to whatever job you're seeking, unless it composes of either of those elements. Um, I don't know. I think no, I don't think there's a link between primary teaching and ronations. If there was, I would have found it probably. But no, my answer obviously stays the same. I would like to be a primary teacher. I was talking to Connor earlier, and he is really convincing me to go to Trinity College or just go to Dublin in general.
You
don't
already
do
go
primary
there.
teaching in. I'm a lecturer there, and he wasn't prepared for that. He was telling me, "No, you're not." I don't. But
You're
no,
useless lecturer, actually. Your students are still waiting. Anyways.
I'll just give them their. By the way, I'll give them their qualifications. I don't think I'm probably the most active teacher there, despite not having
Aaron has
lectured
still
in
two
months.
lectures, so
That's fine. I've done 3.
you've done none. No.
Oh my god, that's not true. I've done 2. That's not fair. I've done 2. I lied about 3, but I've definitely done 2. We're not having this discussion live because you're wrong. You're wrong.
You're wrong. I'm your
No, you're
employer, I
wrong.
know. Babe, I can see the stats
Okay.
of when people are on the game.
Well, let's just say HR is going to hear about this, and
HR is me. HR is me.
No, it's Erin, and she's going to hear that you're sexually harassing the students at Trinity College because how dare you mislead about
Rightfully so.
Professor Clark.
Rightfully so.
And it comes with the job. It comes with the territory.
It's in my fucking JD.
But no, there is no connection between primary teaching and ronations. If you are seeking a job that doesn't require politics and argumentativeness and debating and patience, if you don't require any of those, get out of here. You don't need this. It's a hobby that is probably a detriment to whatever you're pursuing.
Dean R. Heathcote has just messaged me.
What's he said? Oh no, is he listening?
No, but well, he might be, but he's probably asking for me to build a studio for the Beeb. I'm gonna say no. Oz, Dean. Oz, babe. Anyways, well, I think if you are looking to go into any public sector job or any job involving children or young people, you certainly should not be on Discord, preferably ever, because it is incriminating just really being in the Ireland server. But yeah, I think, with being in Ronations, it certainly makes you kind of an insufferable person in real life. I felt that like when
Okay, I think you're getting a bit anecdotal now. I think you're the one that's just becoming an insufferable person. I've never had that experience.
And sometimes I scream and cut myself when you speak. Sorry. No, back to the interview. Obviously, your relations with people within your clan, within the wider community, and I'm just rolling with a ball here. I don't know where the question's going to end up, but hopefully we'll find ourselves at somewhere nice.
You'll find it.
We'll find the G spot. So you have built so many precious bonds and connections. Has it ever felt exploitative with the bonds you built with the people around you? Have you ever felt as though a certain sense of guilt for using people to elevate yourself or using them as tools for your campaigns, etc.?
I think this is a leading question. Do you feel exploited by me, Niamh?
No. Your campaign, I'm genuinely I'm locked out of Oris when I come to see Cillian. They say no, he's busy. I see him.
You show me. You literally hand them the security guards. You shove the posters in your face like, that's me next to him. Let me in. And you're like, no.
I work for you.
Like he doesn't know you. Sorry.
No,
And you're like,
your name's
I'm
not on
his
the list.
great grandchild. This is us at Trinity together, and they're like, you've got to stop Photoshop and stuff. It makes you look like a freak.
That's I. That's I. That. Gotten so powerful. That looks pretty realistic. But you can tell with the hands. You can always tell with the hands.
No, but you can always tell by the hands. But no, I can't say I've ever felt that way. I can't say I've ever exploited someone. I can't. That's the question you asked me. That's the question you asked me.
I'm really just like, I want to keep this going, but then I don't want to ruin it. So I think unless Dan has anything left before it gets mildly sexual, I think we should close this off.
Yeah, I have one final question. I'll try to think of a more sentimental one to finish on if I can think of one. But I just wanted to quickly ask, what do you believe is the most important thing you've done as president, if anything at all?
I think I don't know if every president has the opportunity to do this. So it's I don't know how good my answer will be. But I think my greatest was the mission I had. I had a mission where I saw I won't attribute it to any group manager because I don't know. That's the truth. But I will say that I saw, and maybe I am seeing the rise of intolerance, the rise of reactionary forces in Ireland, and obviously my role is inherently political, and I think I'm probably the most active president in general chat. I'm probably one of the most. I think I'm the person with the second most messages in general chat. I think maybe Sequatic is more, or Tom, or someone. Valorous, I think, or someone. Um, I think I've like no, that's not true. I checked Valorous earlier. He only has 10,000. I've like 100,000 or 120,000 or something messages in general chat. And that doesn't even include my old account. I think it's not right. By the way, I don't think any president should be as active as I am in general chat. It's probably one of the flaws. You can add that to the list.
It's
Um,
probably gay.
no, it's not actually. That's really generalizing. I think you should be shot.
Stop using umbrella terms.
Sorry, let's not use umbrella terms, guys. Stop. I'm not laughing. Not funny. I'm better than this. But no, I think again, it's a very double-edged sword. It's a very two sides of the coin because on the one hand, I think Neve would agree with me. There have been times where my queer woke agenda was needed in general chat. There were just times where we just can't have space for some of the ideologies that can sometimes be placed in general chat. We just can't give it breath. We can't give it oxygen. We can't add fuel to the fire. Give them an inch, they take five. We can't have that. And although it's not right, the president shouldn't have to be the one to sit in general chat and actively fight. That I should say, this is a horrible time to speak on this issue because I was just rage baiting Kamala like 2 days ago by defending Henry Kissinger. I hate Henry Kissinger. He couldn't have died a more painful death in my view. And yet here I was rage baiting this poor, innocent, talented woman who does a lot for the community. And it's okay when I do it. It's horrible when Sequatic and Ravasai do it, by the way. That's the lesson here. But so yeah, there were times when it was needed where I had to be in general chat and be there, and I hope, and you guys can answer this. I hope you felt it was needed. Otherwise, I would be disappointed with the legacy that my activity left. But hopefully the next president doesn't have to be as active in general chat. But still understands the importance of the ongoing fight. There is an ongoing struggle always, historically, between the reactionary forces and the forces that advocate for progress. And I like to think I've been on the latter fight.
Well, I think it is important for whoever your predecessor is to emulate your level
You
of
mean
activity.
successor?
Oh yeah, whatever. Sorry, tired. Like it because it's I feel as though it's kept you. You know, it's not really possible for you to be down to earth. But you know, it's kept you among your people. It's kept you familiar. It's you are.
Oh, have we lost her?
I think he's been shot.
Give her a moment. She'll come back to life.
Do we have the resuscitator in studio? Do we have the
Um,
I feel
defibrillator
like
maybe?
I mean, we've had so
Oh,
many
there.
terrible.
Oh,
currently,
Neve,
oh,
you got shot. We couldn't hear you for a few seconds.
was I?
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
Start the question
Was
again,
that
or
another
the
terrorist?
Oh,
statement
you
again.
actually cut out. That was
Yeah, you
awful.
and you were gone.
I feel like it is important for your successor to emulate your activity because it keeps you, and I feel like it would be hard for you to be down to earth, but it keeps you among your people
Stop saying
and it,
that. You don't have to say that every time.
and it keeps you, it keeps you acquainted with who's around these days. Whereas if you looked at Sovs or any, bigger group, I'd say, more mainstream, you'd see that the king or whoever they have running the show at the big leagues is very, very stuck up their own arse. Whereas you certainly are.
I'm
However,
not. Stop
you are,
telling people I am.
however, you're more involved, and I feel like that's very
Um,
in a way.
I do agree with what Nia said there, and I think that the next president would really have to try and be as empathetic and down to earth as you have been. And personally, as I've mentioned to you, you've been incredibly inspirational, and to do that, you need to be active and speak a lot in general chat. So, I mean, maybe not as much as you have, like you said in your own words, but I think you've definitely set this precedent that there needs to be activity from the president, and they need to be open and willing to respond to people. And I think definitely in that regard you have succeeded very well. Anyway, I don't think this is the best question to leave on, but it's the best one I could come up with. But being an Irish citizen, RTE Director General, as President and as Taoiseach, and I'm sure you've done many other jobs, I wanted to ask, how does it feel? How was this journey for you? And do you think you'd like to go through it all again?
Um, I'd love if I could do it again with the knowledge I have now. I think it would be, and nobody knows me by the way. I start completely afresh. It would be harder, I think, because you have to remember in those 5 years, I had people who who would give me a second chance or give me a difficult opportunity or go out of their way to make the journey easier. Um, so a lot of it is about circumstance. I won't deny that because a huge part of this group and the nature of this group is whether or not the person you need to give you an opportunity is willing to give it to you. A lot of it is chance. Sometimes they'll simply say no, and that door closes for you, and it won't open again for another little while. Um, but that journey, I find, a lot of it is about activity. You know, I accepted every job that was really on the table. That if I was able to do it, I would be. Corbyn knows this, by the way. When I was in Noosa in 2020, and this is the kind of methodology I adopted in Ireland too. I used to say yes to every single job. I would be working on opposing campaigns. I would be DM campaigning for opposing campaigns. I'd DM 10 people in Noosa and say vote for this guy to be Washington DC Council, vote for this guy to be Washington. You know, it was ridiculous. When I had free time, I would give it all away. I didn't necessarily do that in Ireland, but I did say yes to basically all jobs. I was a commentator for the Irish Space Agency. I know nothing about space exploration, but I had to commentate one of their streams. I was given a script. It was very boring. What else? I don't know. So many odd jobs. That I don't know. You have to be willing to just push yourself, and until you do that, if you just stay within your comfort zone constantly, you don't go anywhere. And some people need to push themselves more than others, and you know. But those 5 years, they were very tumultuous. I never thought I would be where I am now in those 5 years. I know everyone says that, so it's kind of boring. But I mean that genuinely. I did not think I would be president, even at my height, my peak probably when I was Taoiseach or whatever. My opposition leader did. I remember the moment when I left office. I DM'd Dermot saying, good luck, you'll probably win the next election. I remember him saying, yeah, I wonder what they would think of me as president. Sorry, I got that wrong. It was the moment he resigned as Taoiseach. He resigned after losing a confidence vote, and we VC'd, and I said, look, Sorry it had to end that way. You were a good teacher, whatever. And I felt horrible for him, by the way. I was in this anyway, emotional state. I assumed he would be in an emotional state. I felt horrible for him. And then he just very subtly slips in the middle of the conversation. Yeah, I think I'll go for president. And I was like, what? Hello? He's like, yeah, I think I'll go for Uachtaráin probably. And I was like, hello? I never thought that in my 5 years. It was just out, it was out of my range. It was out of my circle, out of my comfort zone, too far. I was not ceremonial. I wanted to be in the rough and tumble of politics. I had barely just gotten over the fact that I became Taoiseach. It took me a while to realise that I had earned that place. For a long time I thought it was out of circumstance, which some of it is, but I also earned it rightfully, and it took me a while to realise that. But in those 5 years, I think it takes a lot of pushing. And you have to play the long game too. If that means compromising on one of your principles, you have to step back and ask yourself, is this a really important principle to me? Do I actually care about it? Is this worth keeping if it inhibits my opportunities and my potential? And the most important thing is you cannot afford to be defensive when you are starting out this journey, or when you want to push yourself further in the journey. You cannot afford to be stubborn or to be an asshole. You can't. And there were politicians out there, and I won't name them, but there were politicians out there who thought that because they had become a TD, they reserved the right to be an asshole, or because even they became Taoiseach, they reserved the right to be an asshole. It didn't end well for them. Nobody earns that right, no matter how many years they spend in the group. As long as I've been in the group 5 years and I've become Uachtaráin twice now, I would never dream of being entitled to that privilege of being an asshole. I don't know anyone who has that entitlement. And that's such an important thing. When you're starting out in this journey, you have to put on a brave face, and you have to pretend to like people you don't, and you have to be overwhelmingly nice to people you do. Not only is that how you win campaigns, it's how you make friends, and in most cases, it's how you be a decent human being. So if you want to take anything from my journey, it's that you cannot afford to lock yourself in a room and be stubborn, but also tell people, hey, look, I actually deserve to be promoted, or I deserve to be elected, or you can't have your cake and eat it too. You have to get out there, be nicer to people, accept ideas that you weren't always receptive to, compromise on principles that aren't as important as you thought they were. And it's a difficult lesson to learn, but you have to pick your battles.
Well, Neve, I do believe you'll be drawing us to a close.
I will be. Well, Cillian, it has truly been an honour and a privilege. And I'm sure the viewers at home and in the studio with us tonight have enjoyed your lovely responses to the questions tabled to you this evening.
Thank you,
So,
Niamh.
no problem, honestly, Achilsa, anytime. I believe that is all we have for tonight. Achilsa will be put in his chair and wheeled home. Anyways, tomorrow evening we have Oireachtas Television with Dole Question Time from 8 till 9:15 at the latest. I am riveted about that. Dan, anything else?
I would also like to reiterate, I'm very thankful to have the president here today. It's for something like RTE, I'd expect it, but for someone like me to come up here and ask questions to the president of Ireland, it means a lot. And thank you for coming out today, and earlier, and always just being here as our president. So thank you for coming. Thank you to all those who watched. That's all from me.
Well,
Thank you, Dan.
Grandma Mílagat agus slán go fóil frón radio telefish